Today we had a fantastic conversation with Olli Vallo, representing UNICEF and creating the UNICEF Learning Cabinet. So he takes us back to his early years as a teacher, also with experience as a startup founder and lessons learned also evaluating EdTech products. And now he highlights the need for new kind of EdTech products also for the global south with everything that entails. Please enjoy this amazing conversation with Olli Vallo from UNICEF. Olli, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Joni.
So excellent to see you again. How are you doing?
Pretty well. Nothing to complain about. I went jogging this morning, so I kind of feel very good and energized.
That's fantastic. Fantastic start for the new semester that is starting. So I want to take us back to 4 or 5 years back when I interviewed you the first time. So we've known each other for a few years. And I got the opportunity to interview you when you were running the Education Alliance Finland. And I asked you a lot about your backstory. You have a very interesting backstory coming from music, applying technology in that as a teacher, and then doing a PhD in education. And there's a lot of interesting things that I want to refer to the previous interview. But I want you to focus on what has happened since then. So after, let's say, the pandemic started coming back to more or less a new normal, you have had quite an interesting journey since then, but then also you finished your time at the Education Alliance Finland. So maybe you can start with the last couple of years from there and tell us a little bit about your memoir since then until your present very interesting role.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I still haven't finished my PhD thesis, so that's that's still work in progress, I guess. But yeah, so we started Education Alliance Finland in 2015, and then we were focusing on evaluating the pedagogical quality of EdTech solutions coming from basically from all over the world. In 2022, I saw this opportunity by Asian Development Bank that they are starting to develop a quality evaluation framework for evaluating EdTech. And of course, having done similar kind of work, having been involved in the development of evaluation framework of Education Alliance Finland, it sounded like an interesting opportunity. Those solutions that we evaluated with EAF were mainly coming from Western countries. Of course, Finland, the Nordics, US, UK, big EdTech markets. And then when I saw the opportunity at the Asian Development Bank, it kind of I started thinking that maybe this is a chance to get to know more to the global South markets, especially in Southeast Asia, and see what kind of EdTech products come from there, what is the landscape, and so on. So I had the opportunity to join the project. I worked for the Asian Development Bank as an EdTech consultant, developing the quality evaluation framework there during 2022. And towards the end of the year, I got to know people from the UNICEF Innovation Hub, and they were saying that they are about to start an office in Helsinki, and then I asked them to give us little sparring when we were developing the quality evaluation framework at the Asian Development Bank, because they were about to do something similar. So I asked them to help us a bit, like share feedback, what do they think about our work, and so on, and that sort of built the relationship. And then of course, like it was like interesting to see the work, how the UNICEF project was starting to build up and so on. But then I had an opportunity to start working at Fried, which is a Finnish EdTech company, and because I had not worked that much on that side of the desk, like developing EdTech solution, working in a startup. I had one experience beforehand in similar position, but having worked at EAF and then worked at Asian Development Bank, mainly focusing on guiding other people to make products. So I kind of had like a that kind of passion that I want to work in a startup and develop, be involved in the product development and selling the product and so on. So then for 2.5 years I was working at Freed. Freed was already a very popular product when I joined the team, but of course during the 2 years it became more and more popular. I guess nowadays we could say it's must be one of the most popular EdTech products in Finland. But then during this time when working at Freed, I was like following from a side how the UNICEF project is evolving. And then came an opportunity that would I like to join the team at UNICEF as a consultant. And then I decided that okay, now it's the right time to join the UNICEF project. And now this opportunity is really amazing. Like once again, it opens a whole new world for me, especially like understanding the global South markets, what's the role of EdTech there, understanding the learning crisis, first of all, and even though it's once again I'm evaluating EdTech solutions, focusing on the pedagogical quality and like content-wise is fairly similar to my previous work at EAF and Asian Development Bank, but still it's the context is very different whereas let's say in Finland or other Western countries, oftentimes EdTech is kind of like a complementary thing in classrooms. We have good teachers, we have good learning materials, and then EdTech is on the side, like supporting the activities. Whereas in Global South, where millions or hundreds of millions of students suffer of learning crisis, EdTech plays like a crucial role in tackling the learning crisis. So it's kind of like a must-have thing there, whereas it's maybe a little bit more on the nice-to-have thing position in the Western countries. But yeah, this is long story, but that's
well, that was a very short summary of what is a long story, because there's so many questions now that I would like to address. But I would like to maybe start with maybe a fundamental question, then differentiating the different needs and maybe also requirements then for the EdTech products in the Western world versus the developing world, if we can divide them a little bit like that also. And then to summarize a little bit my perspective. So I have quite a lot of experience since 2003 in Colombia specifically, and Latin America, and I've also observed, let's say, from a macroeconomist perspective, the different inputs necessary for a good quality education. And I did my master thesis around low-cost private schools in the slums of Colombia. Well, that was the title. And the key finding was that although we had better technical inputs, let's say a TV to be used for teaching, better books, larger libraries, and these technical aspects, maybe even computers for children in the low-cost sector, the key factor were still related to the teaching. So the quality, we could see that even though you had uncertified teachers in smaller, let's say garage schools, as they were called, the commitment from young wannabe teachers, let's say, had a higher impact on the learning outcomes than, let's say, all the other inputs, the material inputs, so to say. So that's where I want to see, okay, even in those areas, the teacher role, let's say, the commitment, the human aspect was still so powerful. Because even though you're a fantastic teacher and you have the environment, maybe you have 80 students per teacher, you cannot really do your job. And even though you have technology everywhere, But that was kind of an extreme situation. And then also I started learning back in 2008 that the only way to reach with good quality education to everyone, because there was not enough let's say high quality teachers for everyone, was somehow through technology, like scaling solutions through technology. But then we have a very different perspective here in Finland because we have still very good teachers, and then we might focus too much on the teachers, I sometimes feel, because we should not maybe resist innovation, because what we see in Finland, for example, is that schools are maybe not following the social development when it comes to digital innovation. And that's, let's say, like a Western problem. Maybe, although we have access to people, to teachers, maybe it's not as interesting to be a teacher as it used to be in many Western countries. So Finland might be an outlier as well. But so that's kind of my perspective in general, but maybe we should start with your lessons learned from the Western world, and then the lessons that you had to learn working more with, let's say, the global South, so to say. So what lessons could you take with you, both from being an EdTech evaluator in Finland and also joining startups in Finland, and also knowing very well the Finnish education system on the pedagogical side, but then what was not applicable, let's say, in the global South, and what did you have to learn then working on a more global perspective?
Yeah, well, the use cases are very different, I could say. That's my first impression. So, of course, in the end, EdTech is only a tool, or and with every tool, how effective it is, how good it is, it really depends on how do you use the tool. So that's very similar regardless of which country we look at. But still the use cases, if you compare, for example, Finnish classroom, of course the teacher in a way is a gatekeeper, so that regardless of what kind of EdTech tools, the principal tells that these need to be used in the classrooms of our school. It always depends on the teacher, that still in quite many cases whether the tool is used or not, and if the teacher uses the tool but is a little bit hesitant of using it, or not very much well motivated to use the tool, it really affects how the tool eventually works. In Western countries, the teachers usually, I think, they have lots of autonomy. For example, in Finland, it's very many times it's up to the teacher to decide that are we going to use this tool, how are we going to use this tool or not. That's not always the case not in all Western countries either. But I think that in global South, maybe more often the decisions might be made like a top down, so that of course in global South country classrooms, it's important to have a buy-in from the teacher, support the teacher to use specific tool and train them to use it in the right ways and so on. But still, it might be, of course, always depending on the country, but it might be that it's more likely that the school leader, principal, even governmental official might just give an order that these tools need to be used, and you will use these in the classrooms. But otherwise, when it comes to the technical infrastructure, of course, it's very different. Now, when we evaluate solutions to be listed in this EdTech catalog, that is a UNICEF-led project together with ADB and Finnish Ministry for Foreign Affairs. So when we evaluate these EdTech solutions to list them in the Learning Cabinet, the EdTech catalog, we always look them from the viewpoint that is this relevant tool for the Global South classrooms, and how it works technically. It plays quite critical role. So of course, with this kind of low resource context where the internet connection is maybe not on the same level, and even the devices might be not as good as in Western classrooms. These solutions they need to work still. Like offline use needs to be possible, and so on. So as a summary, I could say that in many ways the use case is different when it comes to the technical infrastructure, maybe teachers' preparedness of using tools, but there are also many similarities. Like you need to motivate the teachers to use the tools. You need to prepare them. You need to support them and train them, and so on.
But what would be the main criteria, like from a pedagogical perspective? So the main pedagogical criteria from your perspective now for a technical tool. So irrespectively of what is required and to put it in use when it comes to training for teachers and motivation for teachers and also willingness for teachers and decision makers, if you just look at the pedagogical perspective as an expert, what would be the main pedagogical criteria for a technical tool for basic education?
Yeah, it's a good question. In a way, I could say that as long as the students are similar, like human being learns the same ways, regardless of where are you from or which country you live in. The basic like a psychological process, how do you digest and how do you build your new understanding and learn things, that those processes remain the same regardless of who you are and so on. Of course, there are individual differences that goes without saying, but still the general guidelines, the science of learning is the same. How solutions should be different from the pedagogical point of view if they are implemented in the global south or in Finland, for example. I would say that when it comes to the content delivery, for example, or the learning activities, they should be exactly the same. Of course, if there are technical limitations, those need to be considered. But otherwise, the ideal pedagogical approach is the same, regardless of whether the learner is in Southeast Asian classroom or in Finnish classroom. When it comes to how the teacher is expected to use the tool, and maybe how much like pedagogical decision making regarding how the solution actually works and how is the learning experience for the learner, maybe that needs to be considered. So if the teacher is, for example, not trained teacher, doesn't have like a pedagogical competence, at least not as high as trained teacher might have, then maybe that needs to be considered. Just give you like a simple example, that if you give an EdTech tool to a qualified teacher and the tool is super simple, so for example, provide some content and then provide some learning activities, no feedback, for example. Qualified teacher can understand that, okay, these are the sort of the gaps in the learning experience that I now need to fulfill as a teacher. For example, checking the progression, providing adaptive feedback or provide that kind of feedback that would help the learner to get the answers right on next time when trying and so on. And similarly, if the teacher is not trained teacher, doesn't have like a deep pedagogical expertise, it might be needed that the app itself gives the feedback for the learner, and the app itself kind of guides the whole learning experience more. So that I would say, but of course the technical infra it plays a big role, and that's part of the EdTech company's expertise, that you might have a great solution in Finland, you might be very popular, but it's a very different ball game if you want to take that solution to, let's say, Southeast Asian country. You want to take the solution to Malaysia, for example. What works in Finnish classroom, for sure, it doesn't work. Like exactly the same approach doesn't work in Malaysia, for example. You need to have the local understanding. You need to modify and localize the solution for the local context. And I think it's the same. Like you don't have to go to Malaysia. You can take the Finnish EdTech solution, take it to Sweden. You still need to localize it and localize the content and consider the local culture in the design of the application.
And how long do you think teacher training could take us? Like if you add, let's say, a training package to the educators, the teachers on how to put the product in use and then how to do the follow-up, the evaluation and feedback and so on. If you can just add, let's say you have a minimum, let's say, viable package that is the technical part, but then if you create a more teacher training oriented package, how far could you get with that without having to change the product as such, but really having a training package that is, let's say, heavier than what you might need in, for example, Finland?
Well, I think it always depends on what kind of product we're talking about. But still, I think that training the teachers to use the product is so critical that it doesn't matter if you give a little bit too much training, but it might matter a lot if the teachers lack some critical understanding before they start using the tool. That's how critical role teachers play in the use cases of EdTech tools. Hard to say any like a minimum amount of training that should be given. Really depends on the product. What I see now, for example, there is now Edu10 and Grapho Game, some Finnish EdTech companies that are now implementing their solutions in these UNICEF EdTech projects in different countries. Looking from a little bit the side, it looks that the training that they provide for the local teachers it's quite extensive. So they travel there, they meet the teachers, they host training sessions several days, and I think it's for sure partly it's important because of just like providing that needed understanding for the teachers that how is this tool used and how it should be utilized and so on. But then I think also another part of that training is that they have the opportunity to motivate the teachers, make the teachers aware of what are the benefits that your students should achieve through the use of this solution. And when the teacher understands the benefits, the potential benefits, I think it's easier for them to like really find it like meaningful. That why do I take this tool in my classroom?
So from your current perspective in your new role, who is your target audience or the let's say the end user that you want to serve? Is it children or is it, let's say, like directly through families, or is it mainly through schools? If you look at, you can maybe describe your new role. So how new is it? And you're creating this catalog. How new is it? Can you describe really what it contains? Yeah.
So the EdTech catalog, it's called the Learning Cabinet. You can find it from learningcabinet.org. It's a very new platform, still on beta stage. We have a little bit over 20 tools there now, so it's very, very, very small selection of EdTech tools. However, now we are just this Sunday. Now when we are recording this in 2 days, we have now application call open, but it ends in 2 days. So after this application call ends, we will be adding a lot new tools there, hopefully, and. The tools that we list there, the first sort of like use case we have in mind when we decide that what will be listed and what will not be listed is that these tools need to be relevant for the Global South context, and mainly for the institutional education. So school education is the first like a use case we have in mind when evaluating and listing the solutions. The core purpose why the Learning Cabinet EdTech Catalog exists is that the learning crisis is without the help of EdTech, it's pretty much impossible to solve. And when countries want to tackle the learning crisis, one of the first questions they always have is that, okay, we know that there are plenty of good EdTech tools out there, but how do I know what is good for us? So what are even like the safe tools that I could start piloting in my schools, or what are some pedagogically high quality tools that might be most helpful for us? So we try to help with that challenge of fragmented EdTech market, so that now with our UNICEF team we have evaluated several tools and put them in one place, and that can work at least as a starting point for local decision makers in developing countries. They could look at those solutions first and see if there's something that seems like a good fit for them. And yeah, so to answer to your question, the school education is the primary target. Of course, the solutions, if they also work for home learning, even better. But we're not very strict with that criteria. So they need to work in school. If they also work in home, they're very good.
So have you been able to see anything related to the after effects of the pandemic, with the homeschooling sector growing, the alternative education models popping up, where the school dropout rates have been increasing, and has there been any return growth again, or in these, let's say, more developing countries, is there still let's say, a trust in the school system? Or if I just take the starting point, observing how the homeschooling growth happened a lot during or after the pandemic, and is that something that still is a factor to consider, let's say, long term, as a starting point, since, let's say, the B2C model, it has, I mean, as a startup founder, also myself, many people in the industry who succeeded well in the, let's say, consumer market, they targeted directly the families, might have succeeded easier. Let's say Duolingo as an example, that might directly solve a problem, whereas we have so many stakeholders in the school system that don't really get access, so the children and families might not even get access to the products that they would actually need. So maybe we can address this question first, and then I would like to take this to the funding issue, that of course the funding of products, if you have to compete, let's say, financially with the Googles and Microsofts of the world, that game is very difficult. It's very difficult to enter the classroom as a startup founder, let's say, from Finland.
Yeah. Well, in 2022, when I was working at the Asian Development Bank, we discussed a lot, and it was like a big theme, the learning loss that happened during COVID, when students dropped out of school and didn't learn at all, or at least like the very basic skills, like when it comes to literacy and numeracy, there was a big learning loss in those areas. I could say that term is not used that much anymore, but at the same, for sure, that learning loss that happened during COVID hasn't gone away. There are still like almost like whole generations who suffer from that learning loss, and eventually it will strike back. All of these actions that we are taking now with UNICEF, addressing and tackling the learning crisis, of course these are also done because of the learning loss that happened during COVID. But the numbers are very big. Like the latest numbers that I recall are from 2022, and according to, I think, UNESCO statistics, there were 250 million students out of school in 2022. So 250 million students. It's like it's hard to even imagine how like a big part of the whole global youth population that is, and what's the significance of that big number of students not being in school. At the same, there is an estimated gap of 44 million teachers globally. So it's kind of like when the numbers are so big and the situation is so severe, that COVID, it just pushed things even worse. And of course, the global operators and I think each EdTech solution provider is now working to tackle those problems and helping with the learning crisis.
It just feels that in the normal school system, there's no opportunity really to catch up on lost learning time. So to have solutions, even if you have the most fantastic solutions in the world in the school system as it currently is, it might not help the students advance unless you really have a strong focus on the individuals. And then there's so many people who are not in the school system, the formal school system. And that the schools, I see the schools, the role that schools should have if they were or to stay relevant is more as a learning center, learning hub, like our libraries here in Finland, where you can really go freely to learn when you want to, and then find the resources that you need, and then irrespectively of, let's say, the agenda of the individual institution that, because of lack of teachers, can only do so much. So really need to have some kind of a leverage system through the technology solutions that they can reach all corners of the world, irrespectively of having a school or a qualified teacher close. So that's kind of the general developing country situation as I see it. But then because of these students who were in the school system who have not been progressing and have to catch up somehow, can they do that through school, or would there need to be, let's say, an alternative solution that, let's say, entities such as UNICEF could actually provide, whereas the school system cannot really provide it?
Yeah, the learning needs to be accelerated. That's for sure. Of course, if there are solutions that work well for home learning and like after school learning, and those would facilitate the accelerating learning, especially when it comes to basic numeracy and literacy, that is very much like a situation we hope for to happen, and but at the same time, it's this is just like a personal opinion, but like I think that still we should not like rely on students or their parents or families to take full responsibility of that learning loss and accelerating learning. And
no, and also that's also not my point. I don't think even parents have the knowledge. Like we also parents in Finland are bad role models to our kids when it comes to smartphone behavior.
Yeah.
So I'm not even believing that parents can be those taking those, let's say, leadership initiatives, but really educators of the world, like principals, teachers, if they could get tools that would leverage their role also outside of the school, and let's say reach communities where people are. Let's say libraries is an example where people, like young people, go to, let's say, freely, but maybe have other kind of youth centers or other places, let's say, to grow the communities also beyond the school. But I just think that we need to add more elements to the everyday environment, like the football field. Like you can learn everywhere. And also this brings me to the, let's say, more modern learning approach. So since 2014, we have a new learning curriculum in Finland. Well, we probably have a new one since then, but I use that as a strong starting point, where we have a focus on skills development. Like we have at the center of our curriculum, let's say, the development of the human being. We don't have literacy or numeracy. So I see this still as the critical thing to focus on, the development of the human being. And then we have this learning to learn as one main skill. And we have 7 main skills, like life skills. And then that's kind of even before the digital chaos started happening. And we still don't understand how to have students develop a learning skill. So how do I learn? We don't have students understanding how do I find information on the internet. We don't know how to research. We don't know how to use content, thinking critically about what content we consume, comparing different sources, and then how to create content. So to be creative is also an important life skill that kind of is destroyed in our youth. I don't know if it's due to the school system, but many people would argue that it's due to the school system, that we are born as these amazing opportunities. We have a lot of curiosity. We learn when we apply our curiosity, and then we can become scientists if we continue behaving like children also when we grow up. And this curiosity is inspired by opportunities to be creative, and then we have other skills. So this is kind of my starting point that I believe strongly in. And I would like to hear your take on these, let's say, really critical life skills. Like street children in Colombia, they learn maybe how to count, begging for money, and getting coins to get their meal for the day. I don't think they need to learn how to count in a classroom if they don't have access to a classroom, and if they can't pay for a classroom, which might cost in their country. And I'm just saying that, okay, maybe they need some other, let's say, survival skills, like what skills can we enhance in these countries for them to be productive, and maybe then adding, of course, more advanced numeracy skills and language, like presentation skills, communication skills, and reading and writing are also things that people usually learn. Like even in my childhood here and in the Nordics, we learn English by other means than by being in school. Reading also by reading. So the Harry Potter phenomenon, we know that 10, 11-year-olds in the UK and the English-speaking world learn to reading Harry Potter books, being inspired by them through the Harry Potter movies also. So I'm thinking about the sequence, like what should we focus on first, like the lead domino, so that we can then have everything else coming easier. And yeah, I'm looking at, okay, what are the skills that we should have on a global level in the developing countries as maybe in the focus, and then what products could help those skills. So you can add to the numeracy and literacy other skills, but what would be the critical life skills as you see them? Also maybe from your lessons learned from Finland, because Finland is still a role model in many senses when it comes to life skills as well. But focusing on the developing world, what would be the main needs?
Yeah. Well, like you mentioned, basic literacy and numeracy. Those form the basis for learning everything else in very many cases. Sadly, at the moment, the situation with basic reading skills and reading fluency is very, very bad. If you look at the global scale, more than 2/3 of the 10-year-olds in low and middle income countries cannot read a simple text with comprehension. So it's like about 70% of 10-year-olds in low and middle income countries. So that situation is already very severe. However, I don't think it should mislead us to think that because the house is burning there, we should ignore everything else and kind of give us an excuse to forget about creativity and future skills and learning to learn skills and so on. However, as a trained teacher, I kind of see it that many times when you learn something in school, the content is not that important. It's only a mean for you to learn how to learn. Maybe learn like thinking skills, maybe learn critical thinking skills, maybe learn creativity, and learn about yourself. How do I learn? So in a way, I'm a big believer of the idea that it's like, for example, in Finnish school, it's very easy to criticize that why do we learn these things to remember by heart, like whatever, like biological concepts and so on, when you can just Google and you find all the information if you happen to need some of that information. But at the same time, I think that it's very important to learn, regardless if the content per se is not super relevant, and you can also find it through Google in 5 seconds. It's important still to learn that, because you learn to learn and so on. However, having said that, I definitely think even when I was teaching. I was teaching 3rd graders and 5th graders. I could say that almost every day I was disappointed to myself by the way how I was teaching and by the way how small role creativity and self-expression and learning to learn and even social skills played in the learning experiences that I was trying to facilitate for my students. After all, that is what you carry with you when the school ends. It's like you probably forget 90% of the things that you learned, like about the content that you learned, but what stays with you and what is probably most important is the social skills and creativity and other skills. There should be even more focus on those, I think, and even for example, now when we evaluate EdTech solutions to be listed in the Learning Cabinet and potentially be used in developing countries, it's part of the criteria as well that it's not enough if the solution teaches letters or numbers well, but it also needs to function in a way that it also helps students to improve their creative thinking skills and critical thinking skills and other skills like that. It's always part of that. Of course, I think we could if we start like envisioning the future and think about the changes that artificial intelligence is going to bring or has already brought to our lives. Of course, then you could question even more that, like, how important it is to learn the Latin names of flowers or something like this. Wouldn't it be much more important to spend that time like learning creative skills and other skills that you could then put in action through the use of AI tools and so on.
Yeah, and really using our brain for more important things. And that's kind of also what I want to focus is that I'm not at all arguing that we shouldn't use our brain, since rather the complete opposite. That now when we're forcing kids to do boring things that they don't understand why we do them, I think we have to take a step back and try to facilitate the understanding of why we need to use our brains. So why it's difficult to do hard things, difficult things, develop our logical thinking, critical thinking. But no one is telling you that. Like if you're a 3rd grade math teacher, you don't even know why you're teaching math, really. So on a European level, I have those kind of experience where you have math teachers not knowing how to connect what they're teaching with reality. So where the starting point of all subjects is to describe reality. when teachers don't really have the training on that level, that they understand why we are doing the things, so why it's important to study this kind of, let's say, mathematics, it's impossible for the student to get activated enough to use their brain. So I'm saying that, taking the reality as a starting point, now in school, students are not using their brains because they're not interested in learning what they're supposed to learn, because they don't understand why they're doing them. And we're not explaining or teaching them why they're doing the things. So I would love to see first, let's say, a couple of courses in first, second, third grade about why it's important to do hard things. So what happens with your brain? So how to concentrate was another guest that really highlighted that we need to learn how to concentrate. But if we don't understand why it's important to learn how to concentrate, to push us and force us, it will only work if we go to the military. That kind of hard discipline doesn't work in modern school systems. And I'm taking that as a starting point, that it doesn't work even with the most motivated students to keep them motivated for many years in school. These numeracy, literacy and everything, although we need to have the brain develop early on, we need to kind of find the modern way of making the brain as active as possible. And let's say if we have, I would like you to maybe see if you have some lessons learned from your own early startup experience, because wasn't that disappointment that you felt a reason why you became an entrepreneur in the first place? Can you tell us a little bit about that story and maybe highlight some learning points?
Yeah. Well, in retrospect, I could say that my path out from classrooms was that I was disappointed in the ways how I was teaching. Especially, I specialized in music. I was teaching in elementary school, so I was teaching all subjects, but also gave some music lessons, and I'm not a formally trained musician, so I've never taken any music lessons or piano lessons or anything. So I've kind of like a self-taught. I don't play well, but I can play some guitar and piano and so on. So when I was teaching music, I was mainly singing the same songs with the kids that I was singing as a student when I was in elementary school, and I really struggled to host different kind of music lessons. This kind of applies to all different subjects, but especially in music, it was difficult to do something more creative. Of course, when you have 25 students in the classroom and basically nobody knows how to play any instrument, then what you end up doing is okay, once again, let's sing these songs, and I play guitar, and you can try to play drums and so on. What I was really missing was the similar kind of experience being creative with music than what I had experienced when I was a kid and making songs with computer. So I didn't know how to play any instruments, but still with computers I was able to make songs, and it was a little bit like painting or drawing, or I was able to make something out of nothing, and create a song. And that was a kind of experience that I wanted my students to have as well. And then eventually I ended up working in a startup developing this music making platform for schools. But yeah, that's it is maybe describes on general level that what role technology can have when it really works in classrooms. When we were developing the music making platform, and I was hosting maybe 100 lessons with that in different schools, I didn't have a single lesson that would have been as boring as all my music lessons that I was hosting before or without technology. And I'm not saying that music should be always taught with technology and we should only make music in schools with iPads or anything like that. But still, it really can provide a very nice layer and facilitate creativity in much easier ways than using, for example, real instruments. So with that experience, I kind of saw that, okay, actually these students, they are learning a lot now when they are creating their own songs. It was not easy to make songs with that platform, but still there were, like, in every class you found some hidden talent, that somebody who the teacher thought that doesn't know anything about music was able to, like, miraculously make like a really good song that sounded like real music and was like of really high quality, even from the, like, a musical standards. And I think that the same applies with every subject, that regardless it being music or math or physics or history, when you can bring that layer of creativity, it can definitely unleash the potential in students. After all, we, like, one of our very basic needs is that we want to express ourselves, and if you can have that element or component to be part of the learning experience, it can be. I think it can be very powerful. And technology, I think, generally is really good for doing that.
Yeah, and as I see it, it really sparks the interest and also the understanding of why this subject would be interesting to go deeper into. And then you can start doing the hard work and actually learn how to play a real instrument if you want to. You start feeling, let's say, a stronger purpose behind your learning. And then you realize that this is actually something that I want to learn. And that's where, let's say, the maybe more instructor-oriented classes can also have a role, where you might need a teacher, someone who shows you, who explains and guides you.
Exactly like that. For me, it worked exactly like that. So first, I was just, for several years, I didn't know how to play any instruments, but I was just making music with the computer. But then when I got my first guitar, it took, I could say, only a few days that I was already able to play with that and, like, express myself, not only, like, trying to practice and so on. And I think it was only because I didn't probably have any talent, but it was only because I had been making so much music with computers, so I kind of understood the concept of how music works, and that made it much easier for me to start playing guitar.
Okay, so then take us quickly through your journey with Free Ed, because it's also a fantastic example of a startup journey started and founded by our mutual friend Heikki, and also hope to interview soon.
Greetings to Heikki.
Definitely. And what was, if you summarize, your main learnings helping to grow that platform dedicated to teachers, like the Facebook for Teachers? I don't know if that was a slogan that was used, but main learnings from that environment. So
yeah, well, my main learning is with Fried is that content is king. It was something that I understood during the first few months at Fried. Like you just described, that Fried is a Facebook for teachers. I was describing it exactly the same ways when I started working at Fried, and my teacher friends asked that, what is Fried? And I said, it's kind of like a LinkedIn for teachers, like a social media platform for teachers. But then when I started working there and I started understanding how do teachers use it, and what are the reasons why some teachers come visit Fried every day, I realized that whereas you would go to Facebook just to, like, kill time and, like, give some entertainment for your brain and maybe express yourself by posting something or sharing photos and so on, the reasons why teachers came to Fried were very different. They were, like, extremely practical. So they were about to start hosting a lesson, let's say math lesson, and the topic was multiplication table, and they were missing some activities, maybe extra activities for those students who are really fast, or maybe some extra support for those students who struggle to learn with the same materials as everyone else. And they came to Fried previous night or on the same morning when they had the lesson, and they searched for multiplication table activities and downloaded those and used them in the classroom. And if they were able to find good quality materials quick and those materials worked well in their classroom, they came back. If they were not able to find good quality content, quick and easy, many of them probably didn't come back. And that's like we even had like a slogan with the team that content is king. Like, let's just focus on ensuring that when somebody comes to Freed, they find good quality learning content, quick and easy, right away. And that's really like I think it's always like something that I always find with all EdTech tools, that you can have like a really cool looking trendy tool, or you can have excellent marketing activities, and you can build like a hype around a product and so on. But it only lasts and you can only become successful in long term if the actual content is of very good quality and highly relevant for teachers. And I'm not saying like there are plenty of tools like Kahoot or other tools that necessarily you don't have any content when you start using it. You create the content with it. But in those cases as well, the what kind of content you are able to create, it needs to be of pedagogically high quality. And only if that happens, then the teachers will come back time and time again. Yeah.
Yes. So a key question, who creates the content in free ed?
Teachers.
Yeah. So I would say that content is not king. Content creation is king.
Yeah. It's
because I have to elaborate, because I have a strong argument against textbook publishers who manipulate the organic growth of modern content creation. Whereas, yes, we need to have someone certifying, and maybe we can have a user, like, why is Facebook successful? Facebook doesn't create any content, but it provides the platform for the users to create the content. So, and then the best content gets promoted through a system that I think is similar to what free ed uses, but I will dig deeper into that hopefully with Heikki. But you can highlight some lessons learned from your perspective when it comes to the critical elements from a pedagogical standpoint. For me, it's not content, because the children are the ones I'm worried about. I don't really care about teachers who are not compassionate about their job. I'm worried about having kids forced to consume content that is provided by textbook publishers and forced through teachers into the classroom. For me, that has very little to do with activating the learning of your capacity as a child. And if you learn how to create content, like if you go back to musical experience, if you learn how to create any content about any subject, you have to activate your learning of that topic to a much deeper level. So you have to learn how to research the topic, so that if you want to create the best content or good enough content for the teacher to evaluate or anyone to evaluate, the learning experience is much, much broader and much deeper. And you also develop critical life skills when you learn how to create content. And I think we've lived like 15 years of a content creator economy, and now we're, like, let's say, in an attention economy that you really have to have great content to be visual, but it's so many other dimensions to it, like how to even come to the surface requires like an algorithm game and all kinds of other power play methods that monopolists use, maybe more than real science-based education entrepreneurs can. Let's see if we look at a global perspective. So here I would like to see and challenge your thought on the content is king, and looking at, okay, what is really the critical thing to promote for schools, for educators, and then for parents and children when it comes to what to focus on. I mean, because it's difficult to find good content. Maybe in free ed it's not. You find it very fast. So that's a good starting point. But how to be able to understand that this is good content, if you just have a consumer-oriented approach and just consume whatever you're provided with. And I don't think the content memorization is as important as your critical thinking skill, so that you understand to let's say evaluate the difference between two deep fake videos in the end, that you have this mindset that, okay, maybe this is not true, maybe this is not the fact. So yeah, how do you think around this topic?
It's a great topic to discuss about. One way I see that the reason why pretty much every country in the world have their own publishers and educational publishers who sell books to schools, and digital books and printed books, is because they are able to make the content to be fully aligned with the local curriculum, so that if you look at the whatever school book in Finland coming from big publisher, you look at the structure, you look at the topics, you look at what learning goals it covers. It covers basically all that it needs to be covered, defined by the local curriculum. It is great content in a way that it's, for a teacher, it makes the work much easier. So you just follow the book, and by following the book, you know that all the curriculum goals are covered. Whether it's the best possible content for students, it's really up to the teacher. Like, for sure, teacher can ditch the book completely and use all kinds of different solutions and provide like much better learning experiences potentially. But still, it requires so much from the teacher that is there any teacher who is actually in real life like realistically capable of doing that? I would question that. So in a way, the content is it can be defined that this content is good because it makes the teacher's life easier in order to do the job well, meaning covering the curriculum goals and going through all the topics and so on. When it comes to the like what is first, content or content creation, it is like I have exactly the same observation that the new ways for creating content are for sure, they are eventually disrupting, like they have disrupted the media, and like we might watch the news from YouTube or TikTok or Instagram rather than reading them from like a basic newspaper website. And same, I would guess, will apply to learning materials as well in the long run. So if you look at Freed, for example, I would guess there is now maybe 15,000 learning materials published by Finnish teachers for Finnish teachers. Those 15,000 learning materials, I could safely say that they cover really well probably the whole elementary school, like all the curriculum in Finland. If it's like you wouldn't have anybody coming to Freed unless there is content, but then again, you wouldn't have people publishing the content unless they know that there will be people who want this content. And it's a bit of like a chicken and egg that what is first. But maybe with these kind of like a content sharing platforms, it's good that you first focus on the supply side of things, so that you ensure that somebody's sharing, there is some content, and then little by little you start shifting to the demand side of things, so that you ensure that people come there and download the content or consume the content, and that means that these content creators become more motivated to do it because they know that there is real audience. During my time at Freed, we launched the marketplace. So when I started at Freed, everything was free there. But then we started thinking, of course, like with any business, you as a business, you need to pay your own bills, and you need to be able to cover the salaries and so on with the incoming money, and we thought that as a one potential business model that might work for free, so that teachers could also sell their self-created materials there. It has worked really well, not only because it has provided an additional revenue stream, but I think most importantly it has worked well because it dramatically improved the quality of the content in the platform. And it's a funny process that like a psychological process that happens in a person's mind. When you publish something for free, you don't ask any money for it. The drivers that make you publish and make you maybe once more check how good the content is and think about like question how relevant is this are very different if you publish it with €0 price or €1 price. Even though that €1 might and is completely insignificant for you, you would not think of making any money with that €1 product. But when you put the price tag there and you publish it, it changes the mindset completely that how good this needs to be and is this easy to understand and is this actually relevant and how could I make this even more relevant for the potential buyers. And that's the kind of process that started happening in large scale with the teachers who publish content on Freed when we launched the marketplace. And that kind of was aligned with our thinking that the quality of the content matters so much. So whatever changes we do to the platform, they needs to serve the purpose that it improves the quality of the content and hopefully also the quantity of the content. It just happened that with the marketplace also even though it was a little bit against our own hypothesis, we were thinking that now when teachers can also sell the materials, there will be less free materials published. But what eventually happened was that it was completely other way around. That because you were able to sell content, many teachers started publishing more actively also free content. Maybe they got more the engagement with the content publishing was improved because they knew that I can also sell here. So it's kind of like a fair deal. I publish something free, publish something with a price, and it's fair for me and for the people who download my content.
That's very interesting. So you have the same provider who has a motivation to promote or publish and create more free content because they also sell some content. So it makes a lot of sense. And maybe that's, if we try to finalize this conversation about the funding topic a little bit. So lessons learned from the startup space, what startup, like really good science-based startup products need, and then also versus what is actually missing maybe in the industry to facilitate that these products come all the way to the classrooms. Because I'm thinking about maybe the Microsofts and Googles of the world, they have so many products for free that no one can compete with. So you cannot compete with something that is free if you want to sell to a teacher who doesn't have a budget. So automatically use the Microsoft environment and everything that comes with that as an example. But if you because they also sell a lot of stuff, so they have a lot of marketing budget, a lot of budget to provide things for free. But when you don't have that budget, how do you see the funding system working at the moment, and how should it be maybe possibly changed? Because one of the critical factors that we see in the edtech space is the lack of investments. So you said it publicly, also commented on it in some podcasts, but also since the pandemic, the first hype in investments and then the drop in edtech investments, and then the difficulty then for good products to get the funding they need. What elements could an entity like UNICEF, let's say, promote that governments maybe should think about, edtech investments, edtech investors, impact investors, like private investors, should think about, and then maybe also these bigger giants, that how could they collaborate more with startups? Like I'm thinking also about content providers as an example who who already have the channels open, but they might not have the most innovative technological products?
Well, first of all, thinking about the situation, like raising money and having a funding for developing an EdTech product and then hopefully eventually selling it. I think it's a very tricky thing in a way, because especially if you target the schools market, if you try to raise VC money for a product that is targeted to schools, I think it can be very difficult in the first place, because VCs know that it's so slow market that the way how VCs operate, it in many cases it's not like it's a mismatch. So VCs might invest in startups where they expect to get the money back or the profits within the next, let's say, 5 or 10 years. Whereas in very many cases with edtechs that target the school market, it might take the first 10 years to get to the even like a break even when it comes to like how much money it takes to run the operations and develop the product and sell that to the schools. So there's a kind of a mismatch, I think. The good side of these businesses that sell their products to schools is that schools are extremely loyal customers. So if you eventually are able to make a breakthrough in any school market and build like a proper business, you are not likely to lose your customers that easily. I think schools by nature, they want to do things today the same way as they were done yesterday, or same ways as they were done 20 years ago. So we would like as a school we would not like to change anything if that's possible. It's a very difficult market to tap into as an edtech provider. If you make it, you have very loyal customers. That's how I see it. When it comes to these, like, let's say if I were to start an edtech company now, based on all the observations that I've had in the past, I would probably try to bootstrap and develop the product and even develop it to that stage that it actually makes money before I would even speak with any investors, because that time to find a product market fit in the education market, it can be, for some it can be 5 years, for some it can be longer. So it is hard to make it work. That you start an edtech company, you want to build edtech business, and you want to get VC money. There are other kinds of funding instruments, I think, like you mentioned UNICEF and maybe other big NGOs and even big companies like Google and Microsoft, different foundations. There are possibilities to get some additional funding, especially if you are like starting the product development or want to do market research and stuff like that. There are, for example, in Finland, there are grants available for that kind of operations. Then, of course, if you have a proven product, let's say that you do small business in the Finnish market, and you want to expand to some other market, it might be possible that you could work with UNICEF, for example, or UNESCO or some local foundations who would assist you with funding to get to that new market. For example, at UNICEF, we have this Blue Unicorn Portfolio program that is for these kind of proven evidence-backed edtech tools that have proven that their learning efficacy with their tool is high, and their tools actually do improve learning. And then they might, if they get to that program, they have the opportunity to start working with some developing country who wants to do like a even like a larger scale deployment of their solution in the country. So there are these kind of programs that you might be able to get into, but it all comes back to the quality of the application needs to be extremely good. There needs to be very high demand for your solution, and oftentimes it means that the solution needs to make teachers' life easier, so that or while making teachers' life easier, also improve learning, and you need to have evidence to back up that claim. If you have those, then I think that there are possibilities to grow at the company even without any like investor money.
I think that was a fantastic final comment, that it has to improve teachers' lives while improving learning and having science-based proof to show that, since it's not only about making life easier for teachers who in some cases might be just exhausted and they just want to take the easy way out, but it's not any good for anyone to just have children see teachers trying to do their job where no learning is happening. So it really has to come down to the learning also. Any final recommendation or invitation to anyone to follow what you're doing at UNICEF now, and thinking about the chaos with AI and technology since a few years back in education? What should decision makers in education think about when selecting EdTech products, or what can they look out for? Recommendations also for parents, maybe.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing that decision makers usually need to be ensured about first is the safety of the application. In very many cases now, with AI being part of very many products nowadays, the decision makers or EdTech buyers need to be sure that this is like the data privacy is taken care of, and this is safe to use, and there are guardrails in place when if the solution utilizes AI and so on. Otherwise, I believe that if you're an EdTech buyer and you're considering different options of what tools should we invest in, for example, for improving learning of mathematics in our country schools, look at the evidence that the companies have. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a gold standard empirical efficacy research, but if you do spend time understanding that what's the theoretical background of the tool, what's the rationale why it should improve learning, and if the company has done their job well, they should be able to provide you evidence that what are the actual benefits of using this solution. Those solutions we are listing in the learning cabinet. So maybe as a final word, if it's okay to advertise UNICEF UNICEF operations a bit. So I would encourage everyone to check out learningcabinet.org. If you're an EdTech provider, you can submit your application there, and to be listed in the Learning Cabinet. You can also sign up for a newsletter. So we try to build this kind of community of EdTech providers and decision makers and ecosystem operators in the EdTech field globally. So submit an application or apply to our newsletter, and you will be updated on the project.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Olli, and I hope to talk to you soon again and learn more from you. There's so many topics still that I would like to learn and discuss with you.
Thanks, Joni.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.